Good evening and welcome to Chasing the Puck episode 11. Thank you very much for tuning in and always good to see you guys. Hope you had a great weekend of hockey. Your teams, whatever they did, gave you a lot of excitement, a lot of drama, shenanigans, and some malarkey as well. So, obviously, it's been a good week. There's been a lot of talking points, and obviously, just want to thank you everyone who has followed over the last week or so from the last episode. People that who've thrown in their questions and their thoughts and everything that's gone on. Obviously, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Always greatly appreciated. So, first item on the agenda that we've got questions really with relation to is the side of DOPS, and I think that's really the big talking point that everyone's talking about the last week or so, with the aspect of them coming out with the videos or the lack of videos, depending on the ban. So, a little bit of history earlier on in the season is that they had a meeting. Decision was made that if it hit a 3-match ban, that's when they would bring the video into play that they'll put on social media that gives the video, slow mo, zoom in, description or by audio, and then also description online in the post as well. So that was one of the key big things that they did. Obviously, with that happening last season, there was a kind of a lot of everything was pretty much, if it was one game, two game, or anything like that, they did post a video. Of course, greatly appreciated for me because obviously I benefited from it by having those videos readily available and having those to give my unique aspect and way to produce them and show them on a bigger stage. Obviously, that's now changed now. Reasons for it, obviously, is time constraints is probably one of the key factors. There's a lot of information to try and get ready over a short space of time. With them, obviously, having the videos available straight away. They're in a position that they can get them ready, trying to get the recordings, try and get everything set. Because obviously, a decision being made on a Saturday for a Sunday game, kind of seeing delays. And obviously, with the week, depending on if something hit, for example, happened this Sunday, no games pretty much. There's some on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They've got time to produce those things if it does it. But it's kind of that line in the sand. But the argument that I'd probably have with that is that it kind of creates this air of contention because there's different layers really. Is if you look at social media input, if you've got the game live, there's going to be a factor. People are going to be at the arena live. People are going to be watching a stream from the clubs or other places as well. Don't condone that sort of action, of course, but then social media, you'll get a post where I think probably the greatest example of it is right now is that if you were at the rink and you saw Nottingham's game on Sunday, obviously Bernard gets done for spearing and out the game. The highlights aren't out yet. There's not going to be a ban, anything, if there is anything, going to be shown online until later in the week due to the fixtures, and there's no need for it to be thrown out in the week when it needs to be done, because all really is that the team needs to know and be prepared. They can actually throw that on the day before the announcement of the team sheets are thrown anyway. But obviously that means that it's open to interpretation. People that saw it will start posting. Of course, social media channels will probably be looking for it to go on YouTube and then clip that up and then start putting that into the public domain for people's thoughts on the decision, if it's the right decision, and so on and so on. That's the thing, is that the problem in the court of public opinion is that everyone's got them. If you've been following on Twitter, Facebook, or any of the other channels, as soon as something happens revolving a certain team or different teams, there is that kind of level that's being shown online where, we've all seen it. If it's a certain team, if a hit happens to them, people cry foul. If it's a hit by them, it's cried foul the other way. There's that level of interpretation as well. The question is, are DOPS being more lenient this season with their decisions? Um, I mean, that's the thing is that if you know, we noted it last week where we said that they have been consistent with the hits that they've done. There has been some variables and some extraction points, and that's the worry is that are they making the right decisions? We are in a position that we are in a sense where you put a video out there. I mean, we put the Greenfield hit out there that happened in the CHL. Obviously, the hit that happened with Doherty over the weekend, posted that today. The Champini, the Shudra. There's been so many, the Hewlett. It's hard to name so many that I've done. And obviously, there's slightly variables, but in the court of public opinion, it does that. There is a bias depending on which team it might be that is the recipient of said hit and who has caused the hit or an ejection on the evening or anything like that. Certain players come with a track record, especially if they've been a repeat offender as well. That is kind of factored into the equation now with the decisions that DOPS are making. And there's been some hits that you can see both sides of the arguments. It's always in that case of being I'm never going to say that, I'm a person who could actually say with absolute certainty, that decision's right, that decision wrong. But I'm not making the decisions. I can only portray them and bring them out into the light of people that can see them. I think the biggest problem is without the video releases on every single hit, it opens this world now with grainy shots, different angle shots where instantly people have made a decision. Within the first 5-10 minutes of a hit happening, you can get it on the big screen, you can get it on the stream, and people are recording live when they're at a game. And it comes this backwards and forwards about, oh, it's this team, it's that team, throw them out the league, expunge them, throw them all in jail and everything like that. And it's to take it back to its basics, really. You put yourself in a position that are they hiding something with certain videos that they're not showing. I mean, you've got an example. I mean, the kneeing that happened with Ben Lake over the weekend and Flames as well, coming through, is that without people seeing these games, they weren't even on the highlights package. It wasn't called at the time, Ben Lake's one, it wasn't on the highlight package that was shown there, so no one really knows. I didn't just look at it. And you're reading a couple of paragraphs where if you're not watching the game live, you'd be in a situation. This is where I've said it. Obviously, I know people have called me out and said, it'll never work a Netflix of ice hockey. There's not that interest, the cost and everything like that. But if you look at football, for example, Match of the Day, Sky Sports News, BT, there's just so much of football everywhere that every bit of a game is micro-analysed into an inch of its life. I've always said, from a hockey point of view, if you're not at the game, go and experience a game live. That's where you're going to see everything. You're not going to take a full away to 60 minutes of hockey in a 5-minute package that someone's releasing. Because I've with the vlog we do, I'll be honest, I probably have about 200 say videos that have been recorded on the night. Some are just completely a waste of time thinking there's going to be a goal or a hit or something like that. But sometimes I hit big with what I get. But these people are going through creating these highlight packages of, obviously, you want to see the goals, you want to see the good hits, the good saves and moments of there. But then obviously that becomes a realm of what you want to put out there. Because obviously if it's a home team releasing the footage in a highlights package, they don't want to incriminate anyone. But then comes the bias of something like that. If they believe something happened from the away team that hasn't been amplified or notified on the evening on social media and wanted it to be into the public domain, that's when you put it onto a highlight package. I mean, I've said it, for example, I can only be at one game at a time. But if you take the National League and you take the Elite League into question, easily the amount of games, then obviously you're going further down the pyramid of games. I mean, I'd love it to Monday morning go through 30 or so games and look at the ins and outs and everything. But obviously, from an affordability point of view, the streams, big up the Lions. Obviously, they do show their stream live as well and for free. So if something happens there, I can go straight into there and have a look and post something. Perfect. But obviously, it's affordability and cost. We can only see these snapshots of it. But this is the thing, is that you'll hear rumblings. I think if you take Friday, you take Saturday, you take Sunday, for example, I think every single night this week that a game's been on, including Wednesday in the CHL, every other game that's been on, there's been some kind of talking point. And there always is. That's the thing, is it might be something good, bad, ugly, that is conversed about, that people want to highlight or amplify. But I think going back to the DOP side of things, is that in a position now where there's not a lot of goodwill in the side, is that something's going to happen in the game. People are reacting to it, taking the law into their own hands because they think it's not going to be effectively and officially dealt with. And people are, on Twitter, X, with notifications like, when's DOP's going to do it? And National are great with obviously bans and breakfast as well, to coin the phrase that Anthony uses on banners of the wall, is that they are efficient. Something's happened, boom, ready to go at the weekend. You know where you are, you're going through there. And of course, obviously, Mike says the appeal system. And that's the thing, is that clubs can appeal, of course, in National, obviously banking how many that they can appeal, but we don't hear the side of things. We kind of just get something happens on a Saturday, people say something Saturday evening, will they, won't they? Clock ticks, Sunday, you're looking to see if the teams are playing, and then it's just clock watching. Is this going to be something that's happening? Is something going to be changed? And then it gets to like 2, 3 o'clock, game face off at 4. Well, obviously not. And then the vitriol and the side of things is a little bit, depending on the team, some kind of fly under the radar. But if it's one of the arena teams with the bigger fan bases, is that it's sometimes with a DOP situation, it can be a pebble in the water where it will make a tiny ripple. This season with DOPS, the way it's been, is something happens, there's a hit or something happens off the puck or anything, it's like throwing a boulder into the water. And it's easy to say that it's been like this every season, but I just feel it's been amplified. Maybe it's because it's the team who's in the ascendancy last season, and that's kind of brought a lot more animosity, depending on how that looks. But I think it's a tough one. I think they should go back to the video side of things. If they need more bodies to do it, if that's the biggest implication of it, of getting the right people at the right time to get these recorded voiceover and anything like that, that shouldn't negate, because I think a lot of people, is in the absence of information, people draw their own conclusions. If there is a video or something that comes out, people might not necessarily agree with it, but they can actually say, well, we've got an explanation. They can complain about the explanation, but in the lieu of not having an explanation, it opens, I don't want to say conspiracy theories, I'm not going to say that, but it kind of opens up a level of interpretation that people will be drawing of their conclusions, and comments about brown envelopes or bias towards a popular team or anything like that. And it just needs to get rooted down to a level where it's, if 2 or 3 videos come out a week, is that a big issue? Don't think it is. Is there things that don't need to be videoed sometimes? Yep, completely agree. But I think it just needs to be streamlined in such a way that they can get away from this kind of seeds of certain areas trying to throw a slant or an agenda towards it, and misconstrue and undermine the officials and what people are trying to do. Because there's been some valid hits where they didn't need a ban. There's been others where, looking at it, some people have been very lucky to get the fines that they've got not being banned. But now it's every single week now that you're waiting for a hit to happen, and someone's bringing over a hit from 3 games ago and trying to do the comparison. Well, so and so got a ban. Well, so and so didn't get banned. So therefore, this hit in the area of it needs to be a ban. It doesn't need to ban. And going back, someone made a very good point in social media that it all depends on the officials on the night, leading into who's actually doing the checks and everything. people might have a friend that deals with officiating and read what a hit looks like from different countries, from the UK. So many people can give their opinions to it. And, I was very lucky with the national a couple of years ago, being able to be part of that decision making process as well in the lower age brackets and the lower age groups. And it's not easy, with the tariffs that they had back in the day of saying to someone, well, you're 9 or 10 games banned, the way it was in the old system. It's tough with these ones now. You want in the best way, because of the fixtures that come thick and fast, you are in a position where you want to see your best players playing week in, week out. You don't want to see them banned for so many games to put detriment to teams, which obviously goes to the other point is that when you're seeing other teams saying so and so needs a ban from that game, and it's a game that doesn't, for example, if it's the Challenge Cup, not in the same group and it's a league game where it happens, they're not taking the benefit of said banning. So it doesn't help them in the long run for the league. So they're not getting a advantage of it. If something happens in game, they can take advantage. If there's an ejection, 5+ game, they've got the opportunity to utilize that and make sure it's to their best ability. But then asking for people to have 2 or 3 game bans when they're not playing that said team and actually helping other teams, maybe if it's a really good defenseman, goal scorer, netminder, they want to see the bans for what happened to a said person at the time, but they're not asking for that ban to be because of what happened to benefit of them. It's more of obviously recompense for what actually happened during the game. And if you can get that level of consistency now, and I've said it a few times in these episodes as well, that players respect consistency. If they know early on, if they do something stupid, they're going to go in the box for 2 minutes, they ain't going to do it. But if that happens on a Saturday, and then everything that they were able to do on a Saturday is now not allowed on a Sunday, this is where the level of it needs to go, is that, people can get away with stuff and you can see it, so and so did that. It's, to the level of not playground school stuff, he did it, so I can do it kind of vibes. But, you've seen it where you watch one game and you're thinking, well, yesterday this was officiated in such a way where none of this was going to fly. And then Sunday is just an absolute free for all and things are being letting the game flow. And it kind of gets, if you're a fan that's, for example, got a double header both at home games, and you're seeing a game on a Saturday and it completely flips on its head on a Sunday, you don't know if you're coming or going, really. And imagine what that's like for a player as well. And that's, would I like to see the videos again? Yeah, I'd like to see them for every single one, of course. But I know that obviously it's a very time constrained situation for them. But the more we see it, the more the explanation, it kind of chips away at people's argument in the sense, because at the moment it's Wild West, that everyone's got a free reign, that they can open their interpretation. Everyone's a coach, everyone's, former player or anything like that can start throwing in their 2 cents. And if they start doing that, you kind of put yourself in a position there where, I've said things that have been right. I've said things that are completely off the mark wrong. And I can freely admit that. And that's the thing, is from a social media point of view, is that every comment that you're going to get is everyone's going to have it from their slanted opinion. And to do that is that, you've got to take a little bit of humble pie sometimes and go, yes, it might be my team. It might be a player that, I like, but yeah, that's not the right call. They deserve a ban on that one. And, there's probably a couple of hits this weekend and afters that have happened that, people will look at. Haven't heard anything yet, but obviously we won't be able to in the sense of anything that's happened until next week. We'll see. Obviously, on the bingo card, Dops is one of the ones that are there. And it will continue to be so, because it's always a point of contention if it is Dops posting themselves or someone asking for Dops intervention within the fan base of something that they've seen or heard or got a video of, is part of the game. And, we have to respect it. Would it be great to obviously have it? How does that look? as well with the officials that they're asking for their input, their opinion. Of course, a lot of the officials that actually work within the league, have 9 to 5 jobs. They do the officiating that they do in their own time, in their own dime, with the time that they can put in, mixed in with the jobs that they've got to do. It's not, full time employment, which obviously is a different conversation for a different day. But these are the officials we've got. There's not a bank of having as many people that you would really like to have that can come in. It was great a couple of weeks ago of having someone from Europe to come in and officiate in a couple of games just to see how that looked and what that brought to the table. But there is officiating sessions that go around the country end of the season. They have their referees meeting just before the beginning of the season to discuss rule changes or anything like that. And I have seen some posts about join officiating pool and learn the trade and join the ranks of officiating. I can't skate, so it's not going to be me who's going to be asking the officiating side of things. But it'd be interesting to see bring some new blood into the game and see how that looks, because this is the thing, we all love the sport. You're not listening to this for just a Monday night or whatever night you're listening to it, kicking back for a couple of hours just to listen to me ramble on about hockey. So we all love the sport one way or another, and we just want it to strive and survive and be the best it possibly can be. Because that's the thing, is I speak to so many people and I bang the drum with hockey, and I think you all do, really. And we just want to see the best that the sport has to offer, and that's the goals, the fights, the hits, the drama. That's why we're all here for. Which kind of leads me on to the next question that someone had brought in about: do you boo away fans? That was the question that was brought to me to ask people. Is there a level of should everyone applaud the team no matter what the circumstances after a game, regardless who it is, how many hours that they've waited at an airport to get to a game, the stuff that's happened in game? Should you applaud them, or is it right to boo? This is, it's a tough one. Let's me answer this honestly. Have I ever booed a team? Yes. Have I ever booed an official? Yes. Have I ever booed a particular player? Yes. Have I applauded people if they've left the ice for a damn good show of hockey, if they've won or lost from the away side? Yes. Have I applauded the home team after they've won? Yes. And have I booed the home side or mooed? Obviously, if you know the videos from a couple of years ago that we posted where people were mooing after a game. I know. But that's the thing, that's the nature of the sport, really, is that, there is that kind of mentality more than anything, if I'm honest, where, you might be going as a fan, you might be going as a fan of the home team, the away team. You can be a neutral. Obviously, if you saw at the weekend, Steelers fan won chuck a puck in Nottingham against Belfast. Really well done. Good throw. You're kind of in that position where there is 10 teams in the Elite League. Everyone has their team, or some people might be neutral in the safe space of just like myself, which is absolutely fine. But you're kind of in a position where, you do it and you think it's the nature of the game. I think no one has probably left the ice and gone into the locker room and said, why did they boo us? I think, some people relish it. Some people in the past have played the panto villain, which will egg it on and love that kind of atmospheric, being booed, being the villain, being who it needs to be. But, they're human beings at the end of the day. And, there is probably going to be a degree where people don't forget. This is the thing with how many times teams play each other, is that something that happens in, for example, Nottingham, and the fans not being happy about Belfast being booed off the ice, is probably going to be carried in to when they go to Belfast and Belfast are playing Nottingham in that way. It's just swings and roundabouts. At the end of the day, is that me for booing is, to be fair, I see all the comments from time to time when people saying why they're booing, they shouldn't be booing, and all that. And for me, it's never bothered me. You know, I mean, to be fair, I've not really been booed when I've been walking around arena. Still time, if people just want to see me walk past and boo me, it'd be interesting. But obviously, I'm not giving you guys any ideas, hopefully. But it's one of those things. They're professionals. If they're being booed, they've done their job in the nicest way. They've done something that designates that boo. I mean, for example, Dundee won on Sunday, and they didn't get booed by the Steelers fans. They just went off the ice, did their applause. The fans that were there straight onto the Steelers doing what they needed to do, and they got the applause. Perfect, perfect, perfect. There is going to be an area where if there's a flashpoint, that is where something's going to happen. If someone wins man the match, that you feel like they're doing the skate. Might be a game that happened weeks ago. It might just be where they are in the table, where they're looking at them. I think it's something out of nothing. I know it's a question, very valid question that we got sent to me. Absolutely fine. Really appreciate it. I just feel like if you think about it, for me, I don't see it as a bone of contention. It's all good in the drama. The interview that we did with Tansy as well. He said he loved being the villain. I mean, last couple of weeks with hits that happened with him, and everyone's still asking him to be banned and everything like that. He's done the job that he needs to do, and that's the thing is you want these people in your teams. Is that I love a skillful player. I love a really good netminder. I love a two-way defense. A defenseman that can attack as well. But I like someone who's a bit of a. I know it's a rink rat. Obviously, if you look at the players that Brendan Connolly, for example. I mean, Tusi. I mean, obviously, Tusi was just obviously the person that could get under people's skin and, draw a penalty in a fight from them. Got a few wins under his belt as well. But, that's the kind of play that you just liked it, that, people before the game even started was thinking of that player. I mean, that is when you just have to look at it. And, there's just certain people that I always say that you would love them in your team, but when they're not playing for you, you absolutely despise them. I mean, I remember, obviously McNally as well. People loved, when he was doing like the chicken thing on the bench, but other times you're like, if he's against you, you just really hate it. I mean, obviously Haas as well. There's just so many to name that brought it to the table that just loved the boos, that if they were getting booed, they were doing their job. I think sometimes now the boo is just more of a kind of that football mentality. I mean, obviously going back what we said about Clan with the, the 7-8-year-olds that were booing and swearing and everything like that a couple of weeks ago against Panthers fans. But this is just old school, booing. But on the thing is, on the flip side, is that you see people cheering an exceptional piece of skill, respecting someone if they come off the ice, if they've took a battering and they've given a good call of it on a fight. But obviously, if someone's done a really bad hit and someone's been ejected from the game, you ain't going to applaud them. And if those factors in that kind of happen, they're not going to be on your Christmas card list as a player. And of course, you've got to look at variables as well. If you're a former player of the team, I mean, Dundee, I go back to it, is that obviously well respected, got applauded. Every time Ben O'Connor got an assist, let's just say his names were met with boos. And that's the thing, is that certain aspects of it is if you're a former player and if you haven't left in the best way, or, for whatever reason you no longer at that affiliation with that club, is people keep their receipts and have a long memory of it. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people, I think the scoreline is a factor to it. It depends what's happened to flashpoints in the game. But I know people, regardless, that will, show the appreciation at the end of the game and applaud it, because without both sets of teams playing for a solid 60 minutes, or in some other teams a good 40 and not playing the full 60, which is obviously a saying that's kind of more and more in the forefront now, is we want to have a game. And, having these flashpoints and having these moments is, I don't think a team's going to say, I'm going to refuse to play because someone booed me once an away fixture because we ran out winning in overtime. But keep the boos. I don't know why people are getting too drawn out about it. Is that it's part and parcel of the game, nature of it. I don't think, to be fair, if you've just won 2 points away from home and you're being booed by the home team fans, you're walking in the dressing room thinking, I'm going to have a shower, I'm going to have a few beers, I'm going to have some food, and I've done a damn good job because I've been, obviously did everything that we set out to do. And especially if you're on a 8 or 9 hour bus drive back home, it's to take the little wins as well. And I think, the biggest thing is that if someone's going to be a rink rat or just antagonize or play to the gallery, they're going to get booed when they go off the ice. There's going to be that, there's certain things that happen in life. People say, get into a taxi and say, I'm having a great night to the taxi driver, we've been quiet. But like when people smash a plate at Witherspoons, everyone goes, way. Sport is always going to have those moments where, regardless what happens, is someone's going to be the hero and someone's going to be the villain. And that's why we love it. So, third question that was thrown to me was, how do I feel about the sides of commentary? And obviously I asked the message and said, could you elaborate it? And obviously it was brought, if you didn't watch the game on Saturday, there was a few, Tansley scored a hat trick again for the Manchester Storm. And it was kind of a situation where, it was on the bingo card again, mentioning complaints about commentary and stream. Obviously streams, part and parcel, 16 quid, depending on the prices and everything like that. This is the only way that you can get it. I know Premier Sports with the Clan, you can watch the full game highlights. Notts TV now have the highlights packages. Not sure, obviously, with regional places around the country, if other areas are doing anything like that. So obviously, please correct me if I'm wrong in that respect. But I think that's the thing people have to remember is that, it's difficult. I have pronunciation issues. If you've ever, if there was a thing where I'm doing the interviews, I have to ask people sometimes about pronunciation. Is it, their first name? Are they best with a nickname, first name, full name, or pronunciation on their surname? Because if you're not natured to it, and it's a new player, Panthers a couple of years ago, Jono was very good to do pronunciation guide, and some teams have done that as well. So full credit to them. So you have that opportunity to know, because if I'm honest, if someone coming from abroad is difficult. Obviously Laura, who does Fife commentary as well, I know before the season about the Kazakhstani players come in, was worried about the pronunciation. I'm in the same boat. Literally, players like that with names that you're not familiar with, that you don't say in everyday life, is really tough. The caveat of that is if you're speaking about a player that's been in this league for a couple of years, he's going to be here for another year. He obviously is one of the top performers in the league. Have interviewed him as well. So selfish plug. Of course, you can listen to that on the podcast, or you can listen to it here on YouTube at any time. Please do. It's a great interview. Really enjoy it. But there is, obviously the CHL, this is the other familiarity, with Valorant. These are people that are just doing a commentary, doing a job. So it's not dead space with no commentary. So you're getting something in the background. There's going to be issues. I've done commentary as well. So I fully know that, you've got to speak when you need to speak, and times just let the action flow and not just add words when you randomly need it. But when you are in a position where, especially in this league, where everything, you want it to look as professional as it can be. That's the key area with it. And, everyone's going to make mistakes, but this is consistently where it's like that. And I know obviously the person who sent the message was just very much like, what my thoughts of it is it's not great, if I'm honest. And, hopefully they've taken that person to the side and said, we're trying to focus on the game. We're trying to get the focal input of said game. and the good, the bad, and everything like that. But all we're getting tagged into basically some fundamental errors which can be easily avoided, especially where it's not a pronunciation. Everyone's had those moments where you've got tongue tied and twisted, which I've done on plenty of occasions, especially on here when I say something wrong. But when you do, the thing is, you do it once, my bad, because sometimes I can't say five fires. Sometimes it really gets me where I say five fires. Or bribe tribe. Sometimes I say that instead of bride tribe. And it's fraudulent slip, but when you're being constantly battered and told 7 or 8 times, and it's not a great look, especially when Sky scores a hat trick, that you're obviously getting pronunciation wrong. But that's the thing. Commentary is a very difficult beast. We're very lucky to have it. And that there's people that are interested in the game to give their time and their effort to do said timings. But obviously you want the best in class. You want the best people doing the best things that you possibly can. And you just want it to look good and professional as can be, because there is going to be a point at some point, hopefully in the next couple of years, because people will keep asking me, and I will obviously give the same answer, is yes, I would like elite league hockey and national league hockey in some kind of area where it can be watched for the people, by the people, but in masses. You want bigger numbers to watch it on TV and get a pipe and interest into the league. Obviously, the size of it and the seating and everything like that becomes a bigger problem, but you want as many people as you possibly can to view, the thing is, view the product. I hate it where people say journey and product and everything like that. But the next generation, I want people to still watch UK hockey. I want my kids, my grandkids to obviously watch it as best it can be, but I want it to grow. I don't want it to stagnate or just be this kind of, I always say it's not like Fight Club, but it's kind of like this exclusive club that not everyone knows about. And we've got a secret handshake and everything like that. And we're kind of part of that kind of special group that don't know what they're missing for those other people that want to go and watch football and everything like that. You can watch football, but obviously everyone knows hockey's where it's at. But yeah, that's what my thoughts are on it. And just, it'd be great if it wasn't being crossed off on the bingo card and it wasn't a home win banker every time a certain team plays a certain team that it's going to happen, to such a degree where you think obviously you'd make sure extra damn fine that it didn't happen. But that's the thing. So next question that I got was, who is the most surprising package team so far and who's been the most disappointing so far? Well, very easily, quite quickly. Coventry Blaze is obviously that's the surprise package. They're doing really, really well. Obviously, just be careful how I said that. But yeah, platitudes where it needs to be done is that, great performances in the Challenge Cup, great performances in the Elite League. They've been playing well. Kevin Moore, Coach of the Month for a reason with ourselves. Matt Robson, Netminder of the Month, says it itself. But obviously they're individuals, but week in, week out, performance-wise, they've just got a spring about them. There's the camp, every video that you see and everything, the points that have been picked up by Caps and Mackenzie this weekend, is you look at it, Stars, of course, had a great weekend, but, really started really well on Saturday at home against Blaze. You see the scoreline and you think, okay, come a little bit unstuck. Two really formed teams that are kind of playing some good hockey and playing against each other, and the injuries that Stars had at present, and Blaze obviously buoyed from weekend performance in the Challenge Cup where they got the overtime winner with the empty net as well. But this is the thing, Blaze, the testament of a team is winning and winning well. The consistency as well for them is when they've been playing badly, they can kind of bring it in. A lot of teams, when they're not playing well, it just negates the entire game. But, he has this kind of magic juice that he can just say things, Goonies never give up. I know I keep saying it because I just love that saying. That's probably not the Malcolm Cameron list of sayings, but that one is top tier, Boyd really, really good. And, him and Vanel, I mean, what a partnership that one is. I mean, thing is, Kevin Moore, absolutely great. What with what he's done on small budget, his recruitment and bringing stuff to the table. But I think Vanel as well in the background, those two bouncing off each other, especially, more with an assistant coach job and the work that he's done, and Vanel just coming out of Clan and then Steelers. It's a partnership where, you've got to give credit to Blaze that they kind of took upon the opportunity, listened to what he had to say, saw his vision, and bought in. Because there was a time not so long ago when people were posting about Blaze, the attendances, and saying, how long is it going to be until they get bumped down to the National League or look to go? And that's not against the National League with what people were saying, I hope. But, with the tendencies and the kind of performance they were doing, it's the thing is, everyone likes it. There's some kind of familiarity where, it's either going to be Steelers, Belfast, Cardiff, and then there's always that one little team that kind of flops around that has a really good season and, best of the rest kind of thing. But it's always that core three that whatever order it might look like, that's how it's going to finish. And I always like that little peppy team that can kind of come in there that's recruited well, playing well amongst themselves, beating the big teams, but then getting the performances as well, that they're not taking so much out of themselves, taking on the big teams and taking points off them, that then they're losing it with the other teams that are the middle and in and around them, and then sharing the points out. You know, Great bunch of people. Really like the team that he's got. They've got a mentality there where they'll fight for each other. They've got a lot of respect for each other. They play very, very well, fast hockey, skillful hockey. And the worst thing is really, hopefully they're tied down for a couple of years contracts, because the thing is, when people have a successful run and at such a young age, that people will be snapping at their heels. Agents will be spouting their names in and around the elite league, but also other leagues in Europe and back in Canada and America. And it's these performances that it's great for these people to obviously come on a couple of years out being pro to then actually just be there and look for the next move. Because this is the thing is, I spoke to Sam Tremblay last week, interviews on YouTube, podcast, have a listen, really good. Shameless plug number 2 of the week so far. But he was saying that you've got such a short time window to obviously look after yourself body wise, but also plan to the future. This Blaze team, there is of course some older players there that have kind of have that experience, have that experience in Europe as well, that have wanted to see the UK. But also there's a lot of people that are starting that journey. I mean, Mackenzie, for example, Hazeldine as well, and Hopkins. These were players that at Panthers weren't getting any time. They were just going to the box if there was obviously a penalty that needed to be taken. Or, I remember being at a Panthers game, Mackenzie got on the ice for a couple of seconds and people were standing up and applauding him. Gone to Blaze, and now they get an opportunity to get points on the board, getting experience to play, being on a line and getting a chance to showcase what they do. And that's the only way, that the more time that they have training with these players, but also can build relationships. I mean, look at the example. I mean, this week, injuries needed to, but Steelers had Nathan Ripley and Finn Urick. I mean, Urick is just, two-way with Steel Dogs. He's shown what the right way to handle a Brit is, given the opportunity and let him thrive. Doing really good with Steel Dogs when he is there. But the bulk of his time now, obviously due to injuries and circumstances, mean that he's been at Sheffield, getting that training, getting that knowledge, being with people like Robert Dowd and, Shudra, who's been there and done it as well, Whistle. There's just so many people that he's just embedding that knowledge, but he can take it back to Steel Dogs and show them. But also, if you're with like the Scimitars or the Shadows or Steel Dogs as well, and I know there's obviously the cap now with how many games you can play as a two-way before circumstances allow it, depending. But from a pathway point of view, if you can see that down the line at some point you're going to get the opportunity to make that next move or play, because that's the thing is, people looked at it. Why would you leave a team and take, you know, that you're there, happy that you're part of it, that you might go on a two-way with the National League team, play with them with the majority, and then if any injuries happen, you might get called up to one of the arena teams. But, you know, Hazeldine, Hopkins, McKenzie, Caps have all took it into their stride and shown what they can do for Coventry. And, this is the thing, you look at a story for these players is that there is always that kinship of it's great, you see a player from Europe, you see a player from Canada or America coming in, not knowing much about them and doing good and going on to that next level and making that move. But how good it is for someone that you can say, well, they've gone through not grassroots but ice roots level, for example, that have played this team, that have done the hard knocks, that their parents have travelled hundred miles in the UK, gone to arenas and supported their decisions, and now they're getting that opportunity to play week in, week out, putting points on the board and putting themselves in a team where they're delivering. It's now nearly December. Sorry, obviously, this time next month it's Christmas. Do apologise anyone who doesn't really want to know that. But you want these players to do well, and I've said it about National is that with the less imports that are on the table, the future bread and butter of these people that are working 9 to 5 jobs, that are doing it with a couple of training sessions a week, that want to strive and improve and make it a career, if they can do it and move up to the elite league, and then hopefully get the other levels that they can throughout their career, because these guys are young, they've got the world futures ahead of them, and they want to be. I mean, someone made a really good point the other day, is that with shirt off the back, because obviously there's a story I need to mention about shirt off the back, because I didn't say it last week, but I will mention it. Is that you get an import shirt off the back, for example, and that it's a player that might be at the team, for a year, maybe two, depends. And you'll see them on eBay or you'll see them on Facebook being sold. And can you remember so and so? But stuff like that. But someone that's a Brit is finding a good Brit that can be there consistently for 5-6 years, and you win that said person's shirt off the back. You've got a player's basically shirt that's going to be a stalwart, that's going to be there for a very long time, either within the league, because obviously if they're not being treated fairly by one team, they'll be snapped up instantaneously. And the only reason obviously that example came to my head is because Karina got a Brandon Whistle shirt off the back. Obviously, don't really want to say that I was one away from Valorant and she got a jersey, and I was going to get a Valorant jersey for her, and has rubbed it in my face for the past couple of weeks that she won a jersey. Is nothing, but obviously I'm going to try and win 50-50 on Boxing Day, so swings and roundabouts. But yeah, I mean, looking at it, it's completely understandable. Everyone says about the import levels, from a business point of view, that you want people that have been, you look at it and, when you look at elite prospects, I mean, Maxim Golod is a really good example, because obviously he's got NHL experience. There's been players that have been in training camps or have been drafted somewhere down the line, and their career trajectory is, I've always said it, you go on elite prospects, you see, if it's a forward, how many goals they've scored, how many assists they've got, defensemen, trophies, net minding, the statistics. Then you go on YouTube and go, are they a fighter? Oh, brilliant. They've got 7 or 8 videos of them punching someone in the face. Perfect signing. We've got an enforcer. But for Brits is, you kind of see it at national level, trying to prove themselves with the fights that they do, the point scoring that they do. And I think that's probably a testament that, recently, if you look at Finn, you look at Kieran Brown, look at Matt Haywood, Bissonnette, Tremblay, there's so many players, Kel Beattie as well, with Solway, there's just that level, Mason Alderson as well, Liam Stenton, Solway, there's so many players now that, very easily in the next 5 years, these are the next Brits that are coming through the door, because someone said it to me not too long ago that from a GB point of view, that it's got to be the last dance for a few of the guys. I know, very unfairly of me, I can only admit it, that I assume when they won in Nottingham and got promotion back, that a lot more people would have left on a high note of that being, the pinnacle, but then obviously the need of going one more time um, in a tournament that they did. But we're looking at players now in the Elite League and the National League, and this is probably a question to pose that we might do next week or this week on socials. Is what does the next couple of years Team GB look at? Is what players could come in? Very good that GB, when they did the Olympics and they had them in Cardiff, in preparations as well, that they had players that they brought in just to experience a camp and be around that unit, especially with the fixtures they had against Belfast and Cardiff and everything like that, and switch it around. Is looking at it, seeing what those Brits look like. Is there, is there a gulf? Is there going to be a major issue of what brings to the table? And obviously, you look at the players that have kind of aired the halls, which kind of leads into, obviously, congratulations to Jonathan Weaver, Hall of Fame as well. But, there is, Jono, Myers, Clark. There's just so many people. And, you really want the next generation to make a stamp and make a name in themselves. And, we all love GB. I went to Tampere and saw them get a point, losing the penalty shootout, but they went to overtime. So that was my first time abroad after COVID. Really good time away. But to me, did I expect them to be getting to the finals? I was just happy for them to compete and be in there, and obviously being on, a par with some of the teams that they had to face, Hockey Nations, and seeing people that played in the National Hockey League and showing and holding themselves account. It's moments like that, and I really love going to GB games, the atmosphere and the coming together of people within different teams and everything like that. It's great, but it is, we want them to be playing, and this is the thing. I get it that the import situation of what you want to bring in, and everyone saying no, dissolution of trade of bringing people in, having set in stone how many imports you can have to Brits, to homegrown rulings or anything like that, like they do in football, that there needs to be a certain number on a game day roster. Obviously, mixing football in with hockey again, but there's just that kind of situation where it's tough. It's trying to find that balance of that. No one's ever going to sit in a room and say, well, you've got 6 Brits on any given night. They need to have this amount of game time. Not going to be a penalisation or a fine if you don't do that. But you just want them to be in and around the door. Is the greatest thing is having these people on two ways that, when you look at the two-way system and what it reads like, is that, people can train with the organizations that they're playing with week in, week out, but then they can go in, looking at Nottingham with Luca, playing for the Lions, played on Sunday, E-Bug as well, Sunday, given the circumstances, racing down the corridor to do one thing and then the next. But, he's doing a podcast with Panthers. He's on the bench with the import situation, that obviously if they can't do the double imports and there's no injuries or anything like that, and they can put the full capacity in, he's there. Admittedly, bar an injury, it's very rare for him to obviously get onto the ice. But the experience more than anything is taking shots in warm-up against some top-tier players and in practice as well. That's only going to breed through to that opportunity. Obviously, with the Lions, let's not rest on the laurels, with Leeds Knights 2, Billington Stars, Hawks, Blackburn Hawks as well. And then D-side Dragons, so many teams that, have some talent. And this is the thing, people are on 2 ways, people are on 3 ways, is that there's a lot of young talent that's in the system. We just have to make sure that obviously the coach and the development is an important thing, but the opportunities that can happen. I'm happy, a couple of years ago when I did the Lions stuff, seeing Yokoyama, I thought, what's that going to look like? Tearing it up with the Lions, got the opportunities that he did. It was never going to come knocking on the door that he was going to go on to the Panthers side of things because it is a big steep of a jump. But like Matty Bloor as well, seeing him play linked in with Sheldon as well, and then having an opportunity at Telford. And this is the thing, I like looking at the Brits where their trajectory is. Are they going to teams in Europe? Are they having it? Like Joe Hazeldine did, where he had a chance a couple of years going, and then came back to the UK from the Storm thing to then Panthers and then to Clan. It's tough because from a financial point of view, you've got to do what's right for yourself and right for your family and accommodation and home and whatever a club can offer you. You want to play for a sport that you've pretty much been probably playing since you were a young kid. But there is that stigma as well that has to be an understanding exactly how it looks like. Because I know some people, you look at shirts. Most people will get the shiny new imports, name and number on the back of the shirt. But you've got to have a kinship of someone that's been playing and the sacrifice they've made. Exactly the same sacrifices as well of people in the UK and Canada, but they have obviously a bigger catchment area and it's the national sport for them in Europe and Canada and America. Because that's the thing, is as a kid, where I grew up, the rink was probably one bus journey away, 30 minutes down the road. Never skated. Probably went to gigs there, but I never really went ice skating. And at a Christmas market in Nottingham, I never did it as well. Probably too afraid to fall on my arse and break something. But it's tough. You think about the area of what's got a rink and the close proximity to a said rink, and the funding and the coaching and the areas, and that's obviously with Clarkey, what he does about his training camps and everything as well, of trying to get people on board. And obviously, Sheffield as well has days for them as well, and it would just be, if we can try and get a perfect storm of what we can do, it'd be perfect. But I might have gone on a bit of a tangent here when I was talking about who was the team that impressed me the most, but obviously now I've gone about development, which was another question, so I've kind of merged the two into one, which is absolutely fine. But it's something that I'd love to see in the next couple of months and years, and there's enough people that advocate it, that want to see it strive, that are within the hockey community. I wish there was something that we could do and all pull together and create, kind of a lever or something that we could get it talked about more. And it's great of having all the drama stuff that's happening, but we've got to celebrate that good stuff as well of the next generation clubs and teams that are actually proactively looking at that future. Obviously, if anyone sees anything, I'm more than happy share it, retweet it on any of the socials to try and just encourage people to give it a go and giving it a chance. Because that's the thing, is that what we do now, in 20 years' time, we kind of hope that we are leaving a footprint for the next generation and being, someone can kind of take my place of what I'm doing now, probably 10 times better than me, admittedly, because I know what these young people are like nowadays. But that's what you want, is you want everything to just be in its best possible place. Would it be great that hockey takes over football as the most predominant sport in the UK? Never going to happen, but one can dream. So speaking about the UK, the second part of the question was, who's the team that obviously is kind of just took it? And 50-50, if I'm honest. Fife's the easy one, given the circumstances, the beginning of the season, the optimism, the players that they brought in, and obviously the situation again with Brits and injuries and players leaving and the chopping and changing around it. But this is the thing, mixed bag. Saturday, really, we were ready for the 5 pass post. I won't lie, anyone who was following the bingo card, I was kind of holding off, waiting for Fife to get 5 against Cardiff. Obviously, it didn't happen, so we had to obviously push the button a little bit earlier than we originally planned. But for a team on Saturday to go 5-4, given the circumstances, Taz Berman comes in for Cardiff, new netminder off the plane into his new team, Bounce and Carruth, the circumstances of their injuries due to obviously Continental. He's probably a key factor, but really great performance for the team, going up to 5. Really an exciting, fun game, it looked like, if I'm honest. But then, Blaze, obviously, we talked about the platitudes with the way that Blaze were, but going 9-2. I thought obviously this is the first 10 pass that we were going to see on the board in the Elite League for a while. And, you can talk about busts, legs, injuries, putting it all on the line on a Saturday as well. But obviously, the Coventry was exactly the same. They came from Dundee, so bus legs as well. Probably passed each other on the motorway on the way home. Probably raced each other to get to the rink, depending on obviously if they stayed overnight, of course. But it's one of those things. It's just what was the expectation like? Really, people wanted them to push on. Everyone had cooling in the air, really breath fresh air. His interviews still coming through, very informative, very in depth and detailed. He wants more bodies through. The mixture of Brits is a concern of what they can bring through the door of the numbers that they can with the import slots that are left available. Latal kind of opens it up depending on the ruling. If they can replace him as not like and it doesn't take the remaining import slots away. But you're kind of in that situation more than anything where, you look at the Dundee Rockets, obviously that's kind of an affiliation. You can't really take anything from Solway as well, Kestrels, teams in Scotland that, can kind of bring in and having someone. This is the thing is bodies on the ice take alleviation of the pressure of having 14 imports and changing it around and the ice time that they're having, getting tired and strategies that are changing is tough, but it's not fair on the kind of players that you're just coming in, you're going to be on fourth line, giving them more minutes they need to, and kind of diminishing their appearances. But also, it's a very difficult one because if someone's not clicking, and my point for it really was really great performance on Saturday. And then Sunday, you've got that performance that you've got to not going to be happy with the scoreline. You've got to travel back. You've got a week of coaching, week of getting your body right and everything as well. It must be tough mentally and from morale. Is that you giving all that you can give, putting your body on the line. It clicks on a Saturday for the most part. Yes, just come undone against Cardiff, which obviously is no shame to do so. But then to go to a team that's performing really, really well on a Sunday is where do you look at and go, well, what more can we do? What great against the get the overtime win against Belfast, of course, but it's where it's coming from. Is does something need to come in the door? Of bringing a couple of players then that can just do a trick and play the minutes that need to do because the twofold argument is the more minutes that you can get with the untapped potential that's in Scotland of the teams if they can lend them on a two-way, obviously don't detriment their development, but also it's an opportunity for them to coach as well with someone like Tom Call and Johnny Curran being in the building. It must be great for a young player to get that information and learn what they need to do to ply their trade and improve their game. Take a couple of minutes away off the ice of changes or anything like that, which in turn, with the changes that they wanted to do, gives less time on the ice, but more productivity for the team. Because I think that's the thing is if they can just get a consistent run where look at the puck, bounce, anything like that, one or two games against a team that's struggling, and then a shift in momentum. Because I think a lot of it is kind of built upon they concede early, they might get back into the game, but then they know what's coming. Same with obviously if they start conceding one or two goals in bunches, heads just drop, and then it just a continuous downward trend. So that's five. I think the second team that kind of joins in the team that's there with its wildly inconsistent batting is Manchester Storm. Is in the nicest way, Steelers were dealing with so many injuries that they were on Saturday. Having a netminder in Marco DeFibo, now finding out that he's been injured and he's been plugging playing as best he can, given the injury to Greenfield. And that's obviously another argument with obviously what's happening in the Conti Cup with Bounds and Cruth and the CHL. Those extra amounts of games so early on in the season with an injury to the Fibo and then, of course, Greenfield as well. And, people are saying, Curtis, Crow and Norton are in the building because Steelers are looking to try and get someone in by Wednesday. To obviously alleviate that while Greenfield's still a couple of weeks out and not sure what Marco's injury entails and how that's going to look is you know, the ample opportunity I think Storm probably had, considering who was missing and who wasn't there on Saturday. Really exciting game. You know, Evan comes off and they'll get swapped in and then they swap them around again. Yeah, it's a really big game. You know, Tansy scoring a hat trick, you know, second hat trick of his professional career since time he was in Denmark. But it gave an opportunity for the Steelers players that, you know, n- there was probably nowhere to hide for them, if I'm honest, because there was a couple of players that, you know, haven't been bringing the points production that people would have hoped. And with certain players that were missing on the forward line, it kind of gave them the full opportunity to go further up the line and produce. But for Storm, that's the thing is that, you know, there's comments on social media as how Storm would react. Would they kind of do what they did the previous game at the Utilita of bringing that kind of nature to the game that they've been prone to do in previous games? They've been hit by injuries as well, having the type of players that they have. They kind of need them on the ice. And there is just so many injuries at the moment, which just seems weird that, you know, of course, part and parcel of the game is that there's going to be injuries, but it just seems for some reason all through the board that there is just an influx of injuries recently that normally you wouldn't be in this level of injury side of things in November. So that's obviously another question for another day. But, you know, Storm played the way they did, you know, home crowd in big numbers again, as they always are, and then get the trip to Nottingham on Sunday. I mean, that was a little bit more, you know, rough and tumble with Storm. That I think, to be fair, they can play skillful, they can play well, but they've got that in their locker where they can be a little bit with the needle and a little bit of nastiness. And sometimes you need that, you know, a team that can bring that on and have that reputation and stuff like that kind of battles in because people know that they're already going to go into a battle. And Saturday was a very different one because obviously the previous game in the Utilita, they kind of, you know, had a couple of ejections. They kind of did a lot of stuff after the whistle. The only variable that was obviously the biggest change from that game to what happened on Saturday is that Tansy was on the ice. And I think obviously if they did try that, Steelers had someone that could, I think the best way would nip that one in the bud quite quickly. But consistently, Storm, same with Panthers as well, you know, 0 point weekend, 4 point weekend, is it's either coming good, it's all or nothing at the moment. And that's the thing is that you're kind of in a position where a lot of teams are trying to find that consistency now. The Challenge Cup is starting to get through to its final moments of not being the group stages and going into the semis and the buy-in and everything like that. So now it's coming to a lot of league games because I mean you've got to think about it. Is you know Belfast is a great example. A lot of games against Dundee, Fife, Clan. Not too many of them in the league. So the games that Giants have been playing have been the teams basically that you know in league competition that have been teams that you know if they're dropping points against some really good teams. So once they start getting it onto the board of playing league games against a Fife, a Dundee, and Clan, it's going to be a lot more interesting. But at this moment in time, no one's really looking at the table. No one's you know great. You know, Flames are kind of flying under the radar a little bit. You know, the thing with them at the moment is they're not pulling up trees. There's not a meltdown in the nature of their fan base. You know, for what you see on social media for the guys that are around. They're doing great. Dundee, credit to them. Great performance on Sunday. Really enjoyed their game, start to finish, the way they played and had a little bit of edge to them. Really impressive, really. You know, they're probably down and out from Saturday, but to come back from a big travel to go against a team, both teams not having injuries as well and having their full lineup, of course, you know, you're kind of in a position there where they're really happy with that. They get the win, low block, you know, defensive, perfect, and you know, quite a few times got the best of people. But of course, playing a team short numbered without the players that you would kind of bring to the table in Steelers, take the win. Obviously, you can only take the circumstances that are around you as well, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, I think the last question that I really had, obviously, understandable time wise, of course, is travel. Very early on, wanted to talk about people were a little bit in and out about what happened to Belfast on Saturday. Obviously, I wasn't at the game at Saturday, so but finishing at 11 o'clock as well was kind of a inference of circumstances. Um, at the end of the day, they booked a flight for 10 past 10. They can't control the weather. Obviously, that's something where they are, unfortunately, not going to be able to drive somewhere, get a ferry, because obviously the weather, if it affects a plane, it's going to affect a ferry. I know after people last year saying that, well, there was a cancellation last year, they should invest on like speedboats or something like that to get across the. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that was said in jest. Hopefully, it was. It's just one of those things, credit to them to get through when they did. At the time, it probably worked out either cheaper or better suited, better circumstances for them to fly to Birmingham. I mean, admittedly, when you're trying to get to the arena as quickly as you possibly can, you are in a situation where, Birmingham, you'd rather be at East Midlands because it's a slightly quicker journey. Bus legs out of the building, into your kit, and then you go, you get your warm, you get everything there, Didn't realise there was a curfew till 11 o'clock at the arena. If they went to full overtime and shootout, it would have been 11:30. Some people might have missed the last bus home. But I think the biggest thing that I obviously just want to mention with it is that someone brought to our attention is that, yeah, 11 o'clock, really late night, last couple of times, delayed on Sunday for Storm as well due to trying to get the arena ready and throwing sand on the concourse to make it less slippy. But I think the thing is that, in circumstances of people being patient and waiting, you've got to do the bells and whistles, but thought processes with the full intro of coming out. Everyone obviously sees these intros that face off at 7 o'clock, and then you get to like 10 past, quarter past, and then it's just facing off because there's the intro, the video, and the national anthem and everything. Can that be looked at in extreme circumstances? And of course, it's the whole experience. You go and watch 60 minutes of hockey. Someone asked not too long ago, how do you time a hockey game in the sense of getting buses, getting back, or anything like that? So you explain, 20 minutes, break 15 or 20 minutes, of course, but then obviously stoppages and play depend. And obviously, if there's any shenanigans or anything like that, it starts at this time, you might be finishing, because obviously we've been looking at trying to get a flight out of somewhere in the next couple of weeks for the rink tour to work out exactly when need to leave and when need to get the bus and get the flight back. But it is hard. But when people are doing power breaks, I mean, admittedly, not sure why TV timeouts are still one of those things. Obviously, a big factor is probably, of course, having it written contractually, having sponsorship, having an opportunity to do something that is something on screen or giveaways or something like that, so you get it. My caveat for that is that if you're obviously you get a timeout, coach's timeout. If there's two factors really that I think, if your team's getting absolutely cream cracking and battered, um, in a situation where you don't really want to take the time out too early, but you need to reset and refocus the people. If you've got the TV timeout power break, you can reset, you can reload, and it changes the nature of the game. Obviously, these breaks in different periods that happen anyway might not be effective in the first period, but the second, third period. And then the other caveat of that is if you're a team that's fully in the ascendancy and you're thinking, don't stop us now, we've got the forward momentum, we just need to keep piling it on, we can get easily a 2-3 more goals if they're shaken, they're worried or anything like that, is that all that momentum's lost because they're doing something on the big screen. Admittedly, from a time point of view, is you want to you don't want it to be over, but a lot of the time that you've been told that obviously this game is now delayed, doors are now open. It's a cold rink anyway. Here's the food and drink that obviously cost affordability. If you're going to end up being in a place longer than you originally planned, credit to obviously Panthers at the weekend that gave 10% off. Obviously, the way they written it, saying by ticket holders could get 10% off. Didn't tell the staff originally that were working there that it was 10% off. But you've got to do something to keep people excited and engaged. And obviously, from a staff and stock point of view, if they prepped and loaded, cooked and a lot of food that people have either eaten outside the rink or delayed themselves coming in, you don't want to lose all that wastage and try and sell as much and as best as you can. Obviously, fish and chips as well from the rink is the way forward. But I think certain factors. It's obviously it's not happening every week. I mean, in Panthers' case, it seems like there's a lot of delays for their games. Obviously, Cardiff was a very different kettle of fish, that they couldn't get there in time, given the nature of what happened at that time. And same with Belfast. Really, the weather is something that obviously is going to factor in. They played on the Friday. They couldn't fly the night before, of course, because they had to play a game. That's the thing is with double headers and whatnot, because previously in the past they played Manchester and then they played Nottingham. I know they've done that previously. So, because I know Neil comes and flies from Dublin to watch both the games as a one-off. But it's just factoring in people leaving at 11 o'clock. I don't know what people's mood is to be cheering and chanting and raving at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, me 10 years ago, 11 o'clock was a completely different time and I'd be up all night. Now it's 11 o'clock and I'll be ready. I'll be probably already asleep, but obviously you're not going to fall asleep in a rink. So that's a tough one, power breaks and something like that. As far as I'm aware, only real team that kind of does the TV timeout power breaks now. Obviously, there's still other factors that come in, that you've got to obviously stop and play and do it for, dancing, dance cams. There is a caveat that, if you've got a market where people, I mean, if you think about how many people are watching a stream, how many people have come into the arena week in, week out, any idea of merchandise, financial spacing that you can take, you take it. Of course, there's going to be certain ones, affordability on the ice, the placards around the rink, the arena, and everything like that. So to get someone to come through the door and give you money for a set time in the day of a game per period, it's going to be silly not to take that bit of information and do it. But yeah, I mean, that's obviously the caveat where you do it, and that's where the money's going to come in. There's not millions and billions of money floating around, so I fully embrace it on a game to game basis. I think obviously the cause of concern that I obviously want to bring in, if a game's being delayed pretty much an hour and a half after originally planned, it's that caveat of what's the best interest of the players, not just the players that are leaving and have to get back home, but also thinking in the best nature of the people that need to play on the Sunday. And obviously the question there is, do we really need them? Question is fair in yes, because the caveat would be, the game management of the team that's winning or losing at the particular time that it breaks. But from a financial point of view, it's the only time really that you're going to utilize it, put fully eyes on screen. People might go to the loo, people might go to the bar, but if it's only a couple of seconds, people might I'm just going to stick it in and sit in my seat. And then whatever it's sponsoring, whatever it's advertising, you've got pretty much, depending on the rank, 6,000-7,000 people looking at advertisement. If those people are there every week, or you get people for the first time that take a vested interest in your product that's being posted, it makes business financial sense. If I had the money, would I put some kind of sponsorship on a thingy? Would I sponsor a player or anything to get the name out there or anything like that? Would I love to get the logo on people's helmets? Of course I would, because at the end of the day, if you're a business, you're trying to sell something. If you want to get your name out there, that's what, when I say, please retweet, please share, please follow, it's getting that name out there. It's getting that brand association and whereabouts there. And you've got to do it as much as you can, really. If that opportunity comes at it as a club, you're not going to say no. But then the caveat for that really is it affecting game performance? Probably not. Is it going to bring an extra player into it? Accommodation, something that you need in the bank that you would need for a rainy day? Yeah, so I can't see that as a problem, if I'm honest. Obviously, that's all the questions for this week. Obviously, the new format, doing it this way, the questions with, I think works as best we can. So I think it's better than just a run through of the week going through you guys' questions. So if you're listening to this, please obviously drop us a message on social media of any questions, any queries that you want us to talk about or discuss, or want to bring to the table for next Monday. Obviously, if you're catching this in the week, of course, on the replays or on the podcast, greatly appreciate taking the time to listen. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. What else is there now? Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, of course. If you see me in the street, come and say hi. If you see me at Rink, come and say hi. Don't follow me on Bebo because that doesn't exist anymore. MySpace, of course, TikTok. Give us a follow on there. And thank you very much for taking the time out to listening to us. As always, it's greatly appreciated. And then what can you do? You have a good fun. Enjoy, everyone. See you later.